What transactions have closed out there? Let's talk about a little bit more like positively about some transactions closed, because I'm working some big deals, man, and they're going to be big, but Jesus, man, they're like taking forever to, to happen for me. And I'll start it off. I put a couple flyers back there. I just picked up a nice retail building on Fowler Street, $16 a square foot, or let's make a deal. It's on the nice part of Fowler Street, not to be unethical or impartial to Fowler, but it's great. They redid the whole building. It's right at the Metro. I don't know what to call it, the Metro, where they brought Metro in there and messed it all up. It's kind of a weird little intersection there. But, and then actually there's going to be 2 more spaces in there that I'm going to be picking up also. But one of the spaces is a salon, hair salon. It's completely already built out. All they'd have to do is bring scissors and come in there and start up. It's about 600 square feet. It's got the wash booths, everything in there. And the other one used to have a little grocery store in there, but it's completely canvas now. It's got 2 bathrooms in the back, and it's 1,200 square feet. And I'm picking up a couple more in there, so let's put a deal together. Another one, 2080 Collier Avenue. It's over by Collier Avenue. It's the building over there right now. It's kind of a slash school slash broker in there, Lucy. She's selling the building, $699. Probably could make a little bit better offer than that. She'll do seller financing for 20% down. So it's a beautiful building. I've been there multiple times to speak there. It's cut up perfectly for a smaller church. Great parking, you know, and so I think that'll actually, and she will rent it out monthly also for events and stuff. If you have something that you want to put a smaller event together, she'll rent it out. But it's a really good setup there. It's got offices in there. It's got a little kitchen in there, a couple bathrooms. It's really super nice. I've got brochures back there on that also. So that's that. I want to talk about one more thing, and the reason I talk about this is it actually helped me out. 1031 exchanges, everybody in the room knows what they are. We've probably all done quite a few of them. I did a lot of them in the bank situation, but I had a situation where a guy came to me. It was brought to me by a residential agent. They wanted to do a 1031. He didn't know about 1031, so obviously he didn't know about the time frames, and the guy was on the bleeding end of the 1031 exchange and needed to make it happen quick. Obviously can't find property that quick. We all know that. So I called a buddy of mine at Morgan Stanley. They have a product up there that's it's kind of set up like a 1031 exchange. It's a Delaware statutory trust, and they put it into a UPREIT process where basically Mike's done quite a few of them himself, but they put it into a trust situation where basically it sets for the same 2 years. It's kind of like the same deals with like you would have to do with 1031, other than you don't have to go out and find a property. You just put the money in there. 2 years from there, you're still getting the benefit of getting your money, getting the increase on your money because they manage the money through the REIT. So I think my guy was going to be guaranteed 7% interest over 2 years, and then he can do whatever he wanted to after that. So a great product. I'm a hero, and I'm going to probably get that money at the end of 2 years because he was like, nobody ever said that to me. So that's something, if you guys come across that, it's a great product out there. So anybody else got some stuff?
Can you 1031 back out of it?
Great question. I'll find that out. I would assume you could, obviously, because it's just, can you? Because it's just straight cash at that point. I mean, you can do whatever you want or leave it in there and invest it and keep it in the same REIT. Or I think you have the ability to move it to different REITs also if you want to get more aggressive or less aggressive if you want to.
So what do they have, a stable of REITs or something?
I have no clue, sir, but I can get all the questions. I just wanted to bring you.
Here with ideas.
We don't bring banks in here, obviously, for it's not really a bank, but obviously it's a financial institution. We don't bring them in here due to we got our partners in here, but our partners don't have products like this. No. So I'm safe to say that. So that's the reason I brought it in. Plus, it saved my ass on one deal. So, and the guy loves me now. So, but that's that's the only thing that I got. I know y'all got some stuff you close. Come on, SBN. What you got? What you need? What you want?
I just need deals to close.
Yeah. Amen. Mine.
And I need the deals that I got closed to actually pay.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right.
Anybody got anything? Me and Rick are going to be looking for probably about 20,000 square feet of warehouse space. Close. It needs to be a shell warehouse. Plenty of parking. He doesn't know much about the deal yet, but he's going to know after today.
To buy?
To lease.
We've got that.
We do.
Yeah.
Where at?
South Street.
And also Drew Circle.
Okay. It's an open shell.
Yeah, South Street is just wide open shell. It's an old building, but it has a brand new roof. The investor that just bought it, I'll get you in touch with him.
Okay.
We're gonna lease the whole thing. It's almost 20,000, but he's doing it reasonably.
It's a nice building though. Nice.
Buildings.
Plenty of parking?
They're gonna redo it all.
Okay. So we could.
included in the price, so,
Okay. So we could work with them on the price and build out whatever. Okay.
yeah.
I do have a need. I'm working with a gentleman that wants to put in a pool hall. Working with a gentleman that wants to put in a pool hall, so he needs about 10,000 square feet. Having some type of second generation restaurant because he wants to do like a pool hall with a sports bar. He controls all of the pool leagues in the area. He's the president for that. And the pool halls that are currently in the area won't accommodate them for coming in and having competitions. So he's looking to open something. So he needs
Lease?
like 8 to 10,000 square feet. Parking's been the issue for everything we've looked at.
Lease or buy? Lease?
Either.
What's the parking requirement?
It is, because of the restaurant portion of it, it's 1 per 13. That one, 13 per 1,000 square feet.
Cape Coral, good?
Cape Coral or Fort Myers, as long as it's not too close to the other pool places.
Where's the other one?
Yep.
There's a restaurant that just went up. Actually, I was supposed to get it, but it looks like some other broker got it. Some residential guy. I'll send it to you.
Okay.
'Cause
Thank you.
I don't think we see it because it's on MLS. And I just know about it because
And they couldn't do like 4,000 square feet?
it's a,
He needs a minimum of, like 6. You do anywhere between 6 and 10,000.
so, yeah, I'll get that to you also. Anybody else? All right.
Yeah, anyone that has second generation restaurant, let me know. Got several different users. Like to be in Cape, like to be in Lehigh. So if anyone has anything like that, let me know.
Yeah, I feel like that second generation restaurants are missed because a lot of residential agents, for whatever reason, pick these things up and they get on the MLS and we never hear about them. And
Right.
believe me, through Roadmap Academy, I'm trying to coach our residential agents on putting stuff out there where we see
The
it.
rest
So
is C, right, exactly.
that's my goal, man.
But it's in the MLS and commercial. They're
Yeah.
commercial.
Nobody goes to MLS, and 90% of the room doesn't have MLS. So,
Exactly.
yeah, awesome. So, first of all, let's start out with prayer. Cindy, you want to knock it out?
Sure. Would you guys join me, please? On my way here, I was thinking about us. I was thinking about God. And I thought, y'all will be happy to invite God into this room. So, excuse me. So as we stand here, we want to offer our praise to the Lord Jesus Christ. We thank you, Father God, for your presence today. Father God, I ask that you would bless every person in this room, as I usually do, and as I think of these people, Father God. Bless them with health. Bless them with wisdom. Bless their families and cover them, Lord God, with your protection, Father God. In our country, Lord, we need you to continue blessing and protecting our country from all the evil that's out there. We thank you for the meeting that we're having today and the speaker that's going to be educating us and the food that was prepared for us. So, with that said, Lord God, thank you again. In Jesus' name, amen.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Awesome. So, do a brief introduction. Obviously, James Hunter, One Global Advisors Commercial, Realty One Group MVP.
Donna, SBN Commercial Partners.
Lori Agnew, SVN Commercial Partners.
Rick Dolan from Realty One Group MVP and One Global Advisors.
Michael Rivera is actually one of my guests we brought today, so just a small introduction for yourself and tell them who you are and what you do.
Mike Rivera, commercial real estate broker, Saggio Realty and Rivera Capital. Nice to meet you all.
Welcome.
Thank you.
Michael's a young buck that I'm bringing on the board due to, we're going to actually have a vote, but I wanted to just introduce everybody. I've known Mike for 20 plus years. He was a banker for a long time, commercial broker for a long time. My go-to, I work with him a lot on bigger projects to bring him in. And he does personal lending also, so lends on projects also. So
Your turn.
go ahead there, Brian.
I'm Brian Munderville, Gulf Coast Business Bank.
Michael Brooks, Director Surveying, Morris DePune Associates.
And Brendan Hartley, Assistant Director, so the most beautiful associates.
I'm Tiffany Allard, commercial lender, Suncoast Credit Union.
My name is Cindy Sheehan, and I represent Title Unlimited of Florida, and we do commercial.
Mike Greenhill, Suncoast Credit Union.
Wilson Cider, Cider Street.
Tiffany Luongo, also SBN.
Awesome. And we'll introduce Kevin in a bit. Hey,
Don't forget Joe back there.
Yeah, Joe.
Tied up. He's busy. He's focusing.
So,
Your turn.
Bill Bartlett, Global Banker and Realty.
and then who's our guest there? Awesome. Hey, I think what would be good, if you guys don't mind disclosing, what's some big projects that you guys have that you just started, you're getting ready to fund or getting to break ground on that you can disclose to us? Tiffany and
Banking-wise?
yeah.
On the beach, the goods, new goods going up.
Holy shit, you guys are lending on the beach.
Wow.
All right. See, that's what we need to hear.
Something's
It's a
happening
bit-
on the
it's a-
beach.
What made you land on the beach to this guy? You knew him?
Known for a while, yeah.
Okay,
The other
perfect.
building washed away. New one's gonna be 3 stories, gonna be a hardware store, souvenir shop, and the second level is gonna be arcade / pizza, beer, wine, which is a nice getaway for the kids in the afternoon when it's 100 degrees outside. It's a great, it's a big building too.
They gonna allow that third story?
You guys probably just heard me on the news, Wink News. Wink,
Yeah.
they called me up and
It's not London Bay.
Yeah, right?
yeah, that one just got
God
turned down.
forbid.
Our Seagate.
God forbid we could do anything progressive out there.
Can you say hello to 25% tax increases next year?
Yeah.
Thank you.
If you guys ever have anything that you want to run by too, Mike, me and Mike work quite a bunch of big projects down there, and he's actually well known on the beach, putting deals together down there too. So knows a lot of people down there. So.
I'm funding a project on 41 in Estero. I just put up my construction sign here in the last month. It's a Heartland Dental and a daycare facility. It's 2 separate buildings, and it's going to be about 12,000 square feet.
Nice. What's the building you're building over on Daniels or Colonial going towards Lehigh on the
That's
left?
actually a Suncoast building.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Okay.
We're moving one of our branches.
Who is the daycare?
It's Total Learning Centers.
Is that what's her name? Is it a girl?
No.
Okay.
Total Learning Center?
I know somebody's opened a big center. Awesome. So the banks are lending. All right, that's good to hear, especially on the beach.
Mike, you got anything?
I do, but nothing here locally.
Where are you at?
All over Florida, or around Tallahassee, Stewart.
So so we can come to you if we have things in other state, other part of Florida.
We're lending throughout the entire state of Florida. I've got deals all over the place too, but.
Okay. Gotcha. Okay, that's good to know. Awesome. So basically, obviously we brought in Kevin today. Throw this out there. Commercial land deals are amazing until due diligence starts and the engineer tells you your prime development site is actually 80% wetlands, home to 2 protected turtles, and an eagle that you can't have during mating season around. That's my little take on it. I've actually had that happen. So I think, and I found a short take out there, which was interesting. Today's commercial broker, and the reason I brought Kevin out here, and I think it's very important, and we'll talk a little bit about, Kevin's going to talk a little bit about this, but Kevin saved my ass on a couple deals where I brought him in early on deals that said, hey, Kevin, what do you think about this? I was representing the seller on a deal. It was on the situation, I was representing the seller actually and the buyer, and it had to do with obviously a phase 1. And I knew the bank was going to request the phase 1, and the seller had put a temporary tank out there, double wide tank to fill up his, not even his trucks, like some shit on his like land or something, I don't know, but he had gas seepage on the ground right in front of the tank. Obviously, me having my banking background, I knew what was going to happen there. As soon as they see that red light, the next thing there had a puddle there. It was 3 feet of concrete under that puddle that I knew was there. The bank actually required to do a phase 2. I called the bank and said, why? They said, it's because we see the puddle on the satellite. I said, dude, the puddle's like under 4 feet of concrete. You're never going to be able to drive it. Whatever. Called Kevin, man. We got him out there. We cut a deal on, the cost because I told Kevin what was going on. They drilled, and they couldn't even drill through the concrete. So, learning experience. Worked with, people like Kevin to get you out there early to help in those situations because it could save your seller, buyer a lot of money and not have to go through all that. Banking's always going to ask for the phase 1. And if the question's answered wrong, going to ask for phase 2, right? Yeah. So that's my biggest takeaway. So a little introduction about Kevin. I hope this is right, man. I pulled it off the internet. ChatGPT.
It's on the internet.
Dude,
It's true, right?
if you've gotten a divorce and not these kids, man, just like wink at me or something, man. But I met Kevin actually because I sold his wife's practice or his wife's building, and that's kind of how I met Kevin and just got talking to her. And I'm like, "What does your wife do?" And or what does your husband do? And she told me. And actually, me and Kevin did a deal like 2 days after that. It worked out weird. I was looking for an engineer that day, so it worked out perfect. But Kevin has 20 years of experience plus in engineering experience to remediate and contaminated spaces, paving the way for their safe and successful redevelopments throughout Florida. He's a lifelong call to help others involved in a career where he aims to empower public and private clients to transform their communities. Kevin's work is including evaluating, designing, implementing remediation strategies, working with the consumer. He also is looking for innovative ideas and best practices to solve environmental challenges. He also develops facility plans, leads water resource management projects focusing on permanent compliance while expediting removal of contaminants. By blending technical expertise with a genuine passion for sustainability, he strives to shape a safer, healthier future for all of us. And actually, I'll throw this out there, works extremely good with upfront being proactive and not reactive in situations. And we all love that because we like to save our seller and buyer dollars, and he'll do that. Kevin enjoys spending time with his wife and 3 young daughters. 3 young daughters? You got daughters?
I guess figure 14 is old.
Okay. Young. Sharing his life of nature. So without further ado, Kevin will introduce Kevin.
Thank you, James, and thank you everyone for having me this morning. And I am amazed that ChatGPT came up with all that and put it together really well. That actually was really good.
Be careful with ChatGPT.
I know, really. Be careful there. Yeah. Anyway, So again, thank you very much for having me today. My name is Kevin Yu. I'm a licensed engineer. I work for Stantec Consulting, but I'm really here not to talk about Stantec, which is probably what you don't want to hear about. You want to hear about the environmental side. All right, that's all right. You got the all right. So James introduced James, as James mentioned, he and I have worked together on a number of different deals, included that required a lot of environmental consideration. And before I really begin, how many of you remember when Collier County bought the golf course down in off of 951 and Golden Gate Parkway? Yeah. Did you know they bought that sight unseen? They didn't do a phase 1. They didn't do a phase 2. And now they were just told recently that I think Department of Veteran Affairs says that you're going to yank if they don't remediate the arsenic in the soil in the next 180 days, i.e. 6 months, they have the potential to yank all that veterans money away from the grant because they didn't do the due diligence. So I want to keep that. I want you to keep that in mind as we're going through this presentation, because that is something that is now very, very public information. So without further ado, let's see. There we go.
Should be.
There we go. Okay. All right. So real quick, we're going to go. I'm going to spend 20 minutes, James, about.
20, 25 minutes.
20, 25 minutes? Okay. We're going to go through each of these different things, talking about phase 1, why we need to do one, a phase 2, the purpose of that, remediation, as well as talking about some case studies, one of them being one of James's deals, another one that we helped the seller complete the transaction. All right. So, real quick introduction to a phase 1. First off, how many of you know what a phase 1 environmental site assessment is? Good. I don't want to delve too far into it, but to quickly summarize, phase 1 ESA provides, it's a due diligence study. During the transaction process, you do a due diligence study to evaluate the environmental risk. We want to make sure that as a buyer, you want to know what is there, what could potentially be there. And what that does, it allows you to identify potential risks or recognize environmental concerns, or RECs, and I'll use that term a few times. We go through a process, which is a standardized process across the country. It's called ASTM 1527-21. The 21 is the year when the last standard was issued. We follow through the all appropriate inquiry process, and there's a certain checklist that you have to go through to make sure that every deal or every part of that phase 1 is properly addressed. It talks about, it asks the owner of the property as well as the buyer, do you know if there's any environmental hazards, environmental liens, previous spills, what the operations are, who knows who knows the site. That's what the AAI does. It captures all the information. It's all publicly uses public records to develop this report. In fact, actually, here what a phase 1 covers. We do a public review. We look through all these different records, federal, state, local. We do a site reconnaissance and send someone out there. I know, James, I know you and I have walked on a few sites, and there are some sites that are, shall we say, I'm glad I have my steel-toe boots on because of how much they could potentially ruin the surface. We do interviews. We ask the property owner if they are there, and go through this whole checklist and say, do you know X, Y, and Z? And then we document the information. We go through a regulatory review. There's actually companies out there that do these public records reviews through just a click of a button. We use environmental data reports, EDR. There are other companies like Eris that they have their own databases, but they just consolidate all the information. So if there's ever a discussion about AI in this room, just imagine using AI to run those reviews for us and do that summary and evaluate it, and that will speed up the process. That's a whole different discussion, which I'm not going to go into here. And then what we do is we compile all the information together. We put that information together into a single report, hand that to either whoever the client is at the time, and say, what do you think? And if they understand what we could have found, they may have said, oh, I didn't realize that this was a former dry cleaning facility or a former gas. I didn't know that. In fact, actually, there was a deal in Naples that James brought me to. It's a golf cart facility. They sell golf carts. But if you drive right up to it, you realize it looks like a gas station because it was a former gas station. And there were tanks there. And if you do the phase 1 and you do a records review, you'll find that it's an existing site. It is there's still contamination out there. There's a whole bunch of evaluation done, and then you can take that information and say, okay, well, great. This information is there. It's publicly available. Oh, by the way, I'm the buyer, and I want to buy it for whatever dollar it is. I do this phase 1. I can go back to the seller and say, hey, you know what? It's going to cost me all this money to go clean it up and get this taken care of. I'm willing to do that. You need to give me a discounted price. And that's a negotiation discussion you can have. All right. So phase 1, as I mentioned, is all desktop review. It is just reviewing reports. It does not include, even though we do a site recon, we don't do intrusive work. That's a phase 2. The phase 1 is just to say, okay, what is out there? What is in this on this property that could be potentially cause a problem for my buyer, or if I'm the seller, do I need to do something now before I can sell the property? And I'll talk about that second scenario as in one of my case studies. All right, so that's a quick background on what a phase 1 is, but why do one, right? It costs money. It can cost anywhere between $4,000 to $10,000, depending on the size of the property and what could have been there. Why spend that money? It really is just an insurance policy for your buyer or for the seller. It's an insurance policy. It provides liability protection. If something were to happen and you didn't do a phase 1, you bought the property sight unseen, as I mentioned before, who can be held liable for doing the cleanup work on the back end? Right? That's really what it boils down to, is if you were the seller, or if I were the buyer, and I'm trying to buy your property, I do a phase 1, and I know there's risk there, and I still buy the property, now that's on me, right? But if I do the phase 1, and I go, yeah, no, I can't, I don't want to buy, there's too much contamination here, or there's potential contamination, that could be written into the contract of who takes liability of cleanup or assessment and cleanup on the back end. So then it helps you provide informed investment decisions. It's actually a lender requirement, as James alluded to previously. Like, you have to do one, because otherwise no one really buys property with cash these days, I assume. I'm not a real estate person, but I assume you don't buy in cash. So, for the most part. It's a pathway to further investigation. You don't just drill holes. And again, in this case study, I'll give some background later on. But our client, the seller, they said that the buyer wanted them to just go straight to a phase 2 and just drill holes all over the property. And we're like, no, you don't do that. So we had some conversation about that. And how many of you are familiar with the brownfields program? All right, a few of you, great. So brownfields, you may have heard the word brownfields, right? Really, it's any piece of property that has potential historical contamination. So we're talking of gas stations, of industrial plants, power plants, an old dump, places where illicit things may have happened in the past. Those are types of properties that could be potentially in the brownfields program. The EPA actually has a brownfields funding program, a funding mechanism to provide developers with money for assessing and remediating a property. And that actually can help a development be jump-started, because you don't have to worry about doing all that work ahead of time with your own dollars. Florida, in addition, has its own program as well. It's called the Florida Brownfields Program, but essentially it's called the Voluntary Cleanup Tax Credit, VICTIC. The VICTIC allows you to if you were in the brownfields program, you sign an agreement with the state, a developer can, I'm going to make sure I say this right, a developer can get a tax credit for up to 50% of their cost for the calendar year, up to $500,000. So there are a lot of developers out there that work that program and get a ton of tax credits back. And by doing that, they're able to not have to pass that cost on to anyone who buys the property. And the deal can go through a lot easier. You're not spending a lot more in development or redevelopment, and it'll be beneficial to the community. Also, you want to consider regulatory insurance considerations. There are deals where you have to go through very quickly, and so phase one does take a little bit of time. It takes about 30 days, depending on the workload of the consultant you go with. We typically can get it done in about 3 weeks, but that's, again, depending on workload. Regulatory requirements, if the state gets involved, they may state that, hey, you need to do more than just a phase one. If you do a phase two, which we'll talk about in a minute, they may require the property to disclose information, especially if there is a discharge. If there is a discharge, then there's what the state defines as a discharge. Then you have to go back through and do some additional work, and that may affect the insurance of the property. All right, a lot of talking there. I want to make sure we abide by the time here to get some question Q&A. Again, takeaways, it's not just a checkbox, it's a financial risk protection. It helps you avoid unexpected cleanup costs. Once you buy the property, if you don't do a phase one and you don't get protected, you are then held for contamination cleanup costs. Delays can occur in the deals, potential legal exposure, et cetera. And not doing one is major risk. So again, I'll give you some case studies in a minute. So then from a phase one, you go to a phase two. As I mentioned before, phase one provides you with the recs. If there are recognized environmental concerns, recognized environmental conditions, there's a lot of nuance to that, but basically if there is a potential that there's potential contamination out there, a phase two will then do a presence-absence evaluation. You drill a hole, you grab some soil, you grab groundwater, you run it through a third-party laboratory analysis, and it tells you, does X compound exist in the soil? And if it does exist, fine. Is it greater than a cleanup threshold? That's what really determines the next steps moving forward. So in environmental processes, you can plan things out, but you still need to be flexible of how to approach the project because things could make it turn very quickly. So really there's a bunch of slides here, and James, you can share this presentation if you want. So there's a lot here. In this case, a phase two is essentially the next stage of the phase one. You actually are doing intrusive work on the property. The drill rigs are out there. You've got consultants or sampling staff out there pulling samples out of the ground. You do the report, you run the analysis. That takes a little bit more time. So let's just say it's another 45 days on top of the phase one. So if you did a phase one in 30 days, do a phase two in about 45 to 60 days. So now you're looking 3 months into the deal, right? So now I'm sure you're probably all thinking, well, okay, if I know my deal is going to happen or needs to happen, how much time do I really have? And to be able to negotiate that into the future. So you're not doing a reactive, as James was mentioning, you're doing a more proactive approach. Give yourself more time. Give yourself more ability to consider. And this cost, depending on the size of the property, small phase two, call it $8,000 to $10,000, right? I've done a phase two up in Manatee County, about $120,000. I mean, we were sampling for everything under the sun out there because it was an industrial property. So there was a lot of issues. Actually, does anyone know where the Mosaic spill occurred up in Tampa Bay, in that Palmetto area? Yeah. So there's vacant land right next door, down gradient. That's where we did the work, and it was just this massive industrial area out there. So that was an interesting deal to discuss. All right, so it matters because there's, again, it provides liability protection, provides, again, additional investment decisions that you make. Again, once the lender takes a look at the phase one and they say you need to do a phase two, that's going to be one of their requirements. Regulatory compliance, for grant funding, as I mentioned before, they will require phase two if a phase one indicates it. Let me take a step back. A phase one will get you the information about if you need to, or if a wreck is present. It is up to the buyer or whoever authorized the phase one. Do they want to do a phase two? It's a decision. It's a risk decision. But that information is now there. You can make a better decision. If you move forward with a phase two because of other reasons, that's one thing. I have known people to say, yeah, I'll just take the phase one. Thank you very much. We recognize the concern. We're not going to price the property for $40 million or whatever it is. We'll price it down for 25 or 30 because we know there's going to be concern. So it helps them make a decision. And what the risk, you're basically gambling. So phase two, the takeaways for phase two. Timing is everything. Again, it's 4 to 8 weeks. I usually give about 6, depending on how fast we can get out there when contractors are available. But you can build a phase two timeline into the purchase contract. If you know you did a phase one and it says, hey, if there are wrecks out here, you could potentially contract that in. Say, hey, we'll add some additional time to the contract because we have to do a phase two, rather than trying to rush it. Caveat, laboratories can rush the lab samples. You're going to be paying out an arm and a leg to do that, but it can be done. So if you really cannot negotiate additional time, just be ready to pay the price on the back end. So when do you recommend one? If you know you've had industrial use, gas stations, dry cleaners, underground storage tanks, USTs, you really should do a phase two because you never know what's out there. Quick side story. I worked up in Maryland, and ExxonMobil was divesting all their retail gas stations. And this was in Baltimore County. And if you're familiar with Maryland, Baltimore County actually has a lot of lawyers, a lot of doctors in that one area where there was a gas station. Well, there's one gas station, they were doing a phase two because ExxonMobil was trying to divest the property. They punched a bunch of soil borings and temporary monitoring wells. They found 13 feet of gasoline in the ground. 13 feet. Eventually, after the next 6 years or so, I think, they eventually came up with a number of 26,000 gallons of gasoline was released from that one discharge in 1 month because everyone was using that gas station. So every time the pump was turning on, it was spurting gas into the ground. And because if you're familiar with, so Florida, we have a lot of sands, right? Everything's kind of sandy. It's really spread out. In Maryland, in this one section, it's a bunch of bedrock fractures. So you're dealing with gasoline gets into the groundwater, it hits that fracture in the ground, and it just flows really quickly. So in one area, you had, I think, 200 feet of product detected out there, of pure product, 400 feet the other direction. And then not only do you look at the actual gasoline in the ground, you look at the dissolved side. So chemically, gasoline will mix into water. I know they say gas and water don't mix, but they do. There is an equilibrium. Chemistry. I'm a chemical engineer, so all this, that's the fun stuff for me. But they found the plume, the contaminant plume, a quarter mile from the property in one direction and a half mile in the other direction. So that's how quickly a phase one and a phase two ended up being a $16 million remediation project for my company. Like, that's how quickly it's spun out of control because of that one issue. And that's why you do a phase one and phase two, because if they hadn't caught that, they sold the property, someone else bought the property. Yeah, so ExxonMobil was they're very risk averse, so they did this stuff ahead of time. So the cost of skipping it, the phase two cost, remember what I just said, the remediation cost was $16 million in 10 months. The cost of doing a phase two is pennies, if not less than pennies, to do that work ahead of time. If you didn't do that work ahead of time, you've bought all that contamination.
Yeah, question, Laura?
Yeah.
So we still have quite a bit of vacant land.
Mm-hmm.
What about what they call the bugs and bunnies?
Bugs and bunnies, yeah. So there are wetlands and the flora, fauna side of things. Yeah, turtles. Trust me, the bugs and bunnies people don't like us on my side of things to call it bugs and bunnies. They're like, we're wetlands and wildlife. I'm like, bugs and bunnies, got it, okay. So we also consider that as well as part of this is specifically about the contamination side of things, right? But vacant land, or even just land in general, you do a phase. You can integrate a wetland survey as not part of a phase 2, for example, or phase 1. That's not really. It's not within the scope. But you should still do one anyway if that is the case. Yes.
So you do species surveys?
We do species surveys as well. Yep. Yep.
Is there a website that you use that we can go generally and say, okay, I'm looking at financing a gas station. Is there a website that we can go to get general information?
So if you want to look at there's a Florida contamination locator map through FDEP. You just type in the address and it'll spit out what might be in that area. Or let's say you had a deal like that gas station in Naples. You just type that address in. It'll give you at least a current status of it, and then it requires a phase 1 to do additional work. So.
This helped me, guys, on a couple deals because obviously most of you know that I've probably financed did 7 different deals on Palm Beach Boulevard, and all of them were gas stations, automobile places or something. And this is something I learned, that contamination flows downhill. And I almost got caught up on a deal because I was like, what do you think about this place? And he goes, well, I know that they had big contamination on a place right next door to it, and I know that runoff is going that direction. So you need to get a phase 1 and potentially a phase 2, because I bet you bottom dollar that property you're trying to do is contaminated. And sure enough, it was. And the property, and one of the properties that I was on was completely clean. The one beside it and the one behind it were both dirty properties, and we found that out. And it was like, holy cheese.
So that's the other thing. You do the phase 1, you see that your site is clean, but the other adjacent properties are dirty. If you find that if you do a phase 2 or you do some additional evaluation and you find there's contamination on the property, you now have protection against having to do cleanup. You are now what's called the innocent victim defense, and you can actually say, well, I'm not paying a dime to clean this up. It's your problem. You guys have to clean it up, not me. So that's something you can always argue too. Real quick, remediation. This is just one slide on this. Depending on what you find in the phase 1 and phase 2, you should clean it up if you need to. You can also wrap the cost into the sale, and again, I'll talk about this one in a minute. There's lots of different approaches. In the state of Florida, there's a lot of what we call dig and haul, just to clean up the land, just to get done, get the project or get the deal closed quickly. There's other projects where let's say it's an active gas station. You can put a remediation system on site. It'll just keep going for a few years. Then you can clean it up, and so there's a lot of different approaches. And it's usually typically dictated, the need for remediation is dictated by regulatory requirements. All right, so a couple things. This is one of the deals that James and I worked on.
He said that property was clean. The seller said, man, nothing wrong with this property.
Yeah, well.
I said, just move all that shit, man, before your guy comes.
Yeah. So, right. So,
Kevin's like, don't tell him that.
I'm going to point to this. I'm going to talk. This is a curve. This is like a little easy toss here, right? Find me the problems. On these pictures, find me the problems, right? You've got drums of used oil, used oil tanks here. You got used oil filters, and I think in one of these, hydraulic oils, fluids. You got batteries sitting out there, stained rocks, stained soils. Oddly enough, when we actually did this phase 1, I think this one came back clean.
Clean.
It came back clean because there was no.
It's on concrete.
Even though it's on concrete, there are no cracks in the concrete. There's no potential contamination, or there's potential contamination, but there's also the ability for this to get into the ground. You'll notice down here, see this yellow area? These are spill pallets. These are contained areas. So if this drum ever were to release, it would go straight into this, and then you wouldn't have a release. If these drums were on the ground, that's a different discussion. These people were very nice to do all. I don't say nice, but they were very on the game to make sure they stay up on top of the work. All right, this one How many of you know about the Williams Reserve property in Collier County? 2,247 acres. We did the phase 1 and phase 2. We helped the seller sell this to Collier County. Now remember, what I told you before was the county actually said, go out there and do a phase 2. Just punch a bunch of holes, grab all this sampling, and by the way, seller, you're responsible for doing all the paying for all that. The county said that to them. And the family came to us and said, this is what the county said. Is this right? I said, no. You should do a phase 1 first to really narrow down where potential issues are. We're not going to just drill holes in the middle of a pasture for no good reason. So we did the phase 1. We found that there's drums, totes, fuel tanks, fertilizer tanks, etc. And so we said, okay, here are the areas that are of major concern, or that would have brought concern up. And so we recognized that we went through the phase 2, drilled a number of wells, grabbed samples, analyzed them, and honestly, the site was clean except for a handful of places, like maybe 3 places. We're talking 2,200 acres, half of it in row crops, pesticide use, gasoline use, or diesel use, fertilizer, etc. Nothing was out there except for a couple hits of petroleum and arsenic. That's it. So,
let me point something out on this picture too, because I think this is important. Everybody can learn from it. This is the tank that my seller had on his property, and it was just spouting out a little bit of gas onto the concrete below it. But number one, he didn't get the permit to put this tank out there because you have to have a permit that I didn't know about also. And then number two, he didn't get the permit because the guy that came out from this county said, just stick it on there. You don't need it. It's on concrete. You're good to go. So number one, we had to close out the permit, open a permit, close out the permit for this tank. And then the bank required a phase 2 because this tank was on there and it was being used for gas purposes. So what a mess. And
right.
Kevin helped me out on that deal. It was tremendous.
Right. So our experience is, we know what can be stored in this, knowing what the site history is. We have a variety of experience. Again, I'm not here to talk about Stantec. I'm talking, much. I'm here to talk about really this phase 1 and phase 2. This drum up here in the upper left-hand corner, upper right-hand corner, sorry. Coffee's kicked in, and now my mind is going faster than my hands, my mouth. This drum was actually empty. So that's actually a good thing, because now it's empty. They got rid of it before, as part of the discovery. And we were able to, we found arsenic in the maintenance yard area. And so what we did a whole bunch of work out there, assessment work, soil sampling, groundwater sampling. We dug out about a 7,000 square feet area down to 6 inches. Took about a day. We just scraped it with a skid steer and put it on dump trucks. They offloaded it, brought in the fresh fill, and backfilled it. And now that land is considered clean because the state, we followed per state regulatory guidelines. We haven't actually, because there was no defined discharge, we didn't need to report anything to the state. But more to come on that one. All right, so case study, what went wrong? So remember what I mentioned at the start of this presentation, Collier County bought that golf course back in 2019. We're now 7-8 years into that project. They are going to be potentially pulling out additional soil. They were initially told that they didn't need to do remediation, that they could just do a soil management plan, which is accurate. You can do that. But they didn't look at all the funding requirements, and they should have said, hey, yeah, the state's going to, or the feds are going to say, we need to do X, Y, and Z to this property. We should address that. It's not the state to tell, it's not up to the state to say that. It should have been the county. What they should have done was doing a phase 1, did a phase 1 to say, okay, these are the areas, then do a phase 2 and figure out, at the tee boxes, the fairways, the greens, where there's heavily managed properties. How many of you play golf and go out on a golf course regularly, as much as you can? So that really nice green, there's a lot of spraying being done, right? Doing all that spraying over time seeps into the soil, seeps into the groundwater, right? So a lot of golf courses are now taking time to figure out, okay, what are we actually spraying out there? and is this something we can do differently? So that's what went wrong. I don't have any pictures because that news just broke Monday, so I don't have anything, but just beware that that is out there. And with that, I know I'm probably over time, so I thank you for your time. This is my direct business card. So if you want to scan that, that goes to my direct business card in case you lose this. So.
I mean, not to do a pitch for Kevin, but I'll tell you, man, Kevin is probably one of the first engineers that I've called, and he actually picks the phone up. He calls me more than I call him. He actually drives me crazy. Call my ass
Dude,
all the
I
time.
need the next deal. I need the next
Yeah,
deal.
yeah.
What's going on?
What you got? What you got in the pipe? But I would tell you, man, he's saved me so many times. And actually, when I know I'm going to engage him, I pick up the phone and start asking questions up front. Just, I'm never going to use him for free, but he's a great resource. Me and Mike are working a big deal right now. We can't really talk about it right now, but we called him and told him what it was, and he was like, "Do you guys think of this, this, and this?" And we've done many deals like this, and we're like, "Shit, didn't think nothing about that." And sure enough, we're going to have to do. It's going to be passed on to the developer to do a phase 2. Could be potential phase 3. Who knows? So.
So when when a phase 1 is done and the phase 2 is done, and the buyer decides I don't want to touch this, what is the seller's responsibility after that?
If the buyer did the phase 1 and phase 2, and they can use that and say, if the seller may say, "You sure you don't want to buy it? I'll give you a discount."
Is it recorded within the state?
It's not recorded. You don't have to report the phase 1 or phase 2. However, if you do a site assessment per Chapter 62, 780 of the Florida Administrative Code, you have to include that as part of your assessment report. So a seller, it's up to the contract. I mean,
What about disclosures?
you don't have to disclose. I mean, well, I'm sorry. You don't have to disclose to the state.
How would that work, I guess, on a deal then? If the guy didn't disclose it, then I guess that would be a huge lawsuit, but is there a way wouldn't be a way to find it up front?
So my answer is talk to an environmental attorney who knows how to handle this better, because I'm a technical person. I know some of that legal component, but really an environmental attorney who knows the ins and outs of that system is a lot better suited to handle those types of questions.
So then
I would write it into the contract. As if I had the seller side,
Mm-hmm.
I would have it written into the contract that we always write into our contracts, anything obtained by the buyer during due diligence, if
Can't
the
be part
deal
of the
doesn't go through, they have to give to the seller. So
Mhm.
that now the seller at least has that information.
And they have to disclose it for the next deal.
Right.
Because,
what if
and it's not in their best interest not to disclose it, because why go through it all again?
Well, Minnesota, you gotta clean it up. If you're the seller and I pull out, they found contamination, guess what?
Right. But then
There's times you guys don't wanna sell the property because they know it's contaminated and they don't wanna clean it up.
right. They go, "Oh yeah, you found it. Okay." Then they walk and they find the next person who doesn't do the phase 1, doesn't do the phase 2. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Sure. Oh, I got a great deal on this property. Next thing you know, you want to try to do redevelopment. You go into the county or the city for permits, and they go, "Hey, did you know that there was this, this, and this?" And the answer is no, I didn't. Well, guess what? You're gonna have to do assessment to figure it out. So that it can bite you if you. Just beware if you see a property that if the comps show the area of like, hey, they're all like $1 million properties, and I'm buying this thing for $250,000. Something could be wrong with that.
Yeah, I think the perfect example is the deal I'm working in Naples, and I go out there just to get the listing, and the guy, I said, "Was there a gas station here before?" "Yeah, man, I just took those gas pumps and pulled them off and filled it full of concrete. We're good." And then I called Kevin. I'm like, "Hey, man, what's the deal here?" He goes, "I can't do that." So then that's how it all worked out. And now the guy's sitting there, it's not selling, and he's in a long-term lease way under market, so he's stuck. And of course, the tenant's going nowhere because he's paying like $2,000 a month for something that should be $10,000 a month. Crazy. So.
You mentioned that property of, the pollution went down, 16 miles over. Who's
Mhm.
responsible then? If it's on my property that's 60 miles away, do I have to clean it up now?
No, because it's back on where's the source? The source was the gas station. Who owned the gas station? ExxonMobil. So they were the ones footing the bill for all the cleanup.
My property's contaminated.
your property's contaminated, you go into a lawsuit, you sue Exxon, which is what happened up there. Like all these different property owners who were affected by this did a class action lawsuit against Exxon, and they were paying. Exxon was basically paying for bottled water delivery to their house every day. They had to install. I think Exxon installed filters for all their houses to filter all that contamination out. I mean, so there was a whole bunch of things simply because the gas station attendant didn't check the Vita route system, which says the inventory, to say, hey, why am I buying more gas? I know I didn't get as many, more people, so why am I buying more gas? Something should have clicked in their head.
Awesome. Any more questions?
Oh, and to go back to the question about the other the bugs and bunnies side of things, right? We do take care of that. We have resources that can handle that. We actually have someone in Fort Myers that can work on that. Morrison Depew, they do architecture and planning. We do that as well. We can work with them on whatever projects might be there. If you're looking to do building design, or again, that space about you're looking to put that pool champion league in there, we can probably help design that for as part of it. So there are things that we can do that we're a full service global environmental. We are a full service global consulting firm. Basically the question is, it's not what we do, the question is what we don't do. If you have a question like, does Stantec do this? Give me 5 minutes, I will search it up, and I can tell you if we can do it or not, really quickly. So, and James knows very well that, hey, he texted me one night, he goes, hey, do you guys do this work? And I looked at him like, yeah, man, this is what we do all the time.
9:30 at night,
so,
man. So.
And so, yeah, just because it's James, I'll respond to him. But yeah, we do that work, so it I think helped click for this conversation today. So.
And then I probably already know the answer
Yep.
to this. The assessments are valid for?
The phase 1 is good for 6 months. We can always extend it, but every time we extend it for liability purposes, we obviously have to charge a little bit just to make it a legal contract. We're not just doing this for free. So.
What about phase 2?
Phase 2, depending on the state. In the state of Florida, if you do a properly installed well and everything is per code, then the water samples are good for 270 days. Soil samples are pretty good, probably almost indefinitely. And the reason why I say that is because of the approach of fate and transport. You have soil sitting there, that soil is not going to move. Groundwater flows, so you have to grab water every so often just to evaluate it. So.
Back to that listing, prudent to have the seller, go
right.
ahead and step out there and have the assessment done.
Correct. So I'll get into that in just a second. So if you have a.
I just have a question
Yeah.
about, so, some of the properties that we deal with, companies come and go. And
Right.
so like, for instance, on a property, I have a phase 1, but it's 20 years old. I've never heard of the company, so I'm thinking, I've been doing this for 25 years. They're probably not around. Is it something that's cheaper to update one of those? If you have an existing one?
Depending on how old it is, you're saying it was like 25 years old?
No, it's actually probably from 2002.
If you,
So yeah, but yeah.
you typically would have to get a new one, which, if you have one originally from 2002-ish or
Right.
so, right, we can use that as background, and if we say, hey, I have this previous one,
Right.
it may be a good discussion for cost, right? Hey, we have all this background. We don't have to go much further back because all we have to do is from that point forward, but it would still be a full phase 1 evaluation.
Okay, and then would that be like a quicker turnaround, or would it be a different price?
It would be a slightly lower price, probably, and we can talk about pricing, but then timeline, probably about the same timeline, because we still have to go through and get all the data from that point forward, and that
What
it takes
is
time
your
to filter.
timeline generally?
3 to 4 weeks. I mean, it depending on our phase 1 expert, depending on how busy she is, can turn around in 2. She's that good. I mean, she's really good, but she burns the midnight oil sometimes for doing that. So.
Don't we all?
Yeah.
And do you guys do any marine environmental?
We do. We have a whole coastal engineering and wetlands, not wetlands, coastal side as well.
Okay.
Awesome.
What are the SCRO documents?
Site, so it's Site Rehabilitation Completion Order, SRCO.
Yeah.
So Site Rehabilitation Completion Order means it's a fancy way of saying your site is closed. It is cleaned by the state standards. So if there was a phase 1, phase 2 remediation project, it's been registered with the state, and the state says, here you go, here's your here's your SRCO letter.
Mhm.
It basically says, you have closed the site down, you've met all our requirements, there's nothing else to do, so no further action.
At that point, there's no disclosure needed from the seller at that point, is that correct, or no?
It's publicly available at that point. You can, you know, a phase 1 would be.
It'll show up on
You'd want to.
any.
It'll show up it'll show up on.
I only asked because I was involved in selling a plaza in San Carlos Park to a friend of mine. It was off market. The seller failed to disclose. I knew from a long time, because I've been living here since the mid-'70s, that used to be a 7-Eleven gas station.
Mhm.
When I looked at the site to help her get some quotes on some blacktopping, I noticed monitor wells, because I've seen them before as a former real estate appraiser. And I says, I think there's something going on here. And so I told my friend Treasure, I'm like, look, I don't, did he tell you what's going on here? She's like, no, he said there's nothing wrong with it. And so I'm like, I don't think so. So I went to FDEP, saw that it was a site being monitored.
Mhm.
They didn't disclose it. A guy from Sarasota County government who does those documents says, actually, this site has been monitored by 7-Eleven for the last 17 or 18 years, which is probably correct. And it's to the final, the engineer's gonna go in and do a final assessment, and they feel they're not gonna monitor anymore because the discharge was so minimal, and it's been monitored for 18, 19, whatever it was.
Right.
And so now it's gonna be closed out. And I was very concerned, because I was like, I think you need to have a phase 2 completed.
Mhm.
And the guy was like, no. He wanted a short due diligence window, and I was just like,
Right.
don't do it. But
But if you do a phase 1, for example, if you do a phase 1, the public records search is always part of it, right? So EDR will go through and they search for all that.
Right.
We also we look at Oculus, we know exactly what we're doing,
Right.
and we can say, okay, well, we know the site location, we plug that in. Hey, there's an Oculus file. We read Oculus is the DEP's environmental clearinghouse of all their records.
Right.
So you read through all that, and if the first thing that says, if you sort by date, and the first thing it says is SRCO, you can then say, okay, yeah, this is clean, and we're good to go.
Right.
But if you don't see that, or you find that the first document that you see is, it's a discharge form. It's a discharge. It's a form that tells DEP, hey, there was a discharge, and that's the first thing you see.
Right.
You know that it's going to be monitoring for the next however long.
Right. Yeah.
So-
Well, that was the problem. I didn't see it, so then I was like, don't do the offer until at least that document comes through. The guy from Sarasota reached back out to me and says, yeah, it is very, very close. So the owner was not lying, but he didn't disclose the problem in the first place. And I'm like, you have to wait until at least this thing clears.
Mhm.
I still recommend that you get one done, but you can do what you want to do. And so yeah.
Yes.
Anyway, thank you.
No problem. Yeah.
I have a question.
Go ahead.
Okay.
How do you foresee, the solar panels really affecting so much of the state kind of long term? Because some of the solar panels going in have land leases on them for, 20 years. What do you think that's gonna do to the environment long term?
That's a good question. Now you get out of the remediation realm because I'm thinking about. I think I see where you're coming from, right? With you have all these panels out there. What happens when they're ready to be taken out, or if something were to happen and they get destroyed during hurricanes or whatever, right? At that point, my guess is because the power company is installing them, and this is just a wild guess here, because I'm not in the energy sector. I can put you in touch with people in our energy sector that can help you answer that question, though, fully. My take on it would be, depending on what the history is. If they say, okay, yeah, like we had a whole swath of the panels got destroyed, and then debris was scattered all over the place. If that land were ever to sell, you do the phase 1. Hey, there's a solar farm here. You do a phase 2. We knew there was, exotic metals out here. We can do a phase 2, figure out if that actually does, has cropped up. Does it really affect the land?
Are you talking about the metals and stuff that hit the ground? Okay.
Like, I'm from the Midwest, and they're going in and they're taking down these huge farms at
Mhm.
20,000 acres and putting in these huge solar farms. Like, what is that going to do long term to the environment?
But-
Like, from a brownfield perspective,
So
It
that,
could happen with like a tornado or a bad storm
Right.
or something like that.
well, that's emergency management would take over first, and then environmental would follow up on the back end. Um,
Here's what I would tell you. Hang tight. I'm working with a company right now that's coming here that has a patented product that basically disintegrates waste product, turns it into electrical energy. And that's part of their thing they utilize or do is the solar systems.
I'm just thinking of even like all the solar panels that are on all the houses down here, like,
Yeah.
and a hurricane
Yeah,
comes through and blows
so
them all off, like what is that gonna
that's
do?
that's a
If it comes to fruition, have the person you're working with come in and talk.
Yeah, I'm in the process of getting them in front of the Tallahassee right now. So big, and St. Martin Islands also.
if you're curious, just send me an email and I'll find someone to help you out with
I'm
that
just
question.
curious.
Just to throw it out there to say, hey, yeah, I get this question and see if that's something we can help you with, or at least have to answer the question about.
My question is kind of a little bit of an extension of that.
Okay.
So between Hurricane Ian, Milton, we had a lot of flooding,
Mhm.
right? And especially with Ian, it brought all the shrimp boats up onto the land and all that kind of stuff. We're working with a property that is actually right on San Carlos Island
Mhm.
waterfront. We've never been able to figure out, so like when when the state came in and removed all those boats, there was some oil spillage, right, from after, because they sat there for a while after
Mhm.
the storm. And then they came in, removed the boats, in some cases they removed soil,
Mhm.
but there's no way to get record specific to each particular property what they did.
Right.
So how do you deal with that?
Get a phase one.
Phase one, phase two.
Well, I mean, we've already
It's
done
like
that.
it's like staying at the Lonnie
I
Cow
mean,
Girl.
think
You
about
just like
I
turn your
guess
head and go in
in a
there,
bigger-
check
in a
in.
bigger
Right.
In the bigger sense of that, I mean, think about all of, so like every property that was underwater all the way up to Summerlin is essentially contaminated.
Mhm. Yeah, no, and that's absolutely true. Yeah, we do again, we do marina work. I do more inland type of stuff, but we do handle some of that the coastal side. So I get where you're coming from. Like, how do you handle that? Like, in terms of getting the records and all that.
Yeah, I mean, there's no record of it. We've searched everywhere. We've talked to people at the county level, at the state level, at the federal level, and they're like, yeah, we came in and cleaned it up, but no, we don't give you anything to show we did that. Because it wasn't property owner specific, it
Right.
was disaster recovery.
Yeah, disaster. Yeah, it's disaster recovery. So then again, it depends on what function, which organization did the work and all that.
Nobody
know.
did the work. That's the problem.
Right. And
It's when the water
did the work.
when the water receded, it was
Who was
just
the
like
contractor? Wouldn't they provide any documentation?
No, the state came in and did all the clean, took out all those boats.
with their
Yeah.
own equipment, or do they
But they have
contract
a
that work?
contract. Yeah.
yeah, they just picked the boats up
Maybe
and
the
moved them.
contractor, I would imagine.
They didn't do anything like that. They just cleaned the property, pretty much.
Yeah,
I'm
I
sure.
don't. I mean, it depends on what the contract.
Let's
said.
don't
I
open up a
know
can of worms here. That's for
Yeah.
sure.
No record.
No,
Because
but that's
Lord
a-
God,
No harm, no foul.
But those are the types of things where.
I think that falls under the innocence bystanders
That's what phase
law.
one's for, to say there's not record.
The James Hunter 12567 law.
Property, so we know we're fine,
Oh,
but,
okay.
Right.
Yeah.
but still, I mean, it's just a question of there's just no way to.
Right, but if something
Yeah.
were to occur, you say, hey, there was something here, and you know that that's always been a residential property, and again, during the phase one process, you do the interview process. Well, I've been living here for 20 years, and my yard flooded because of Ian, blah, 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 and water was just washing this way. Well, that's where the environmental professional starts making what we develop. We develop what's called the conceptual site model. It's like, okay, we have pollution, we have contamination. Where did it come from? How did it get here? And where is it? And where could it be going? That's what we do is figure out where that. How does it get there? Here's another thing. So I was working for my last company, small firm here in Fort Myers, and we were working with in Ave Maria. There's ag land out there, and they were using dieldrin, and the dieldrin was highly concentrated in one section of a farm field. And I'm sitting there thinking, Well, in agriculture, you spray all the, you have all the all the chemicals sprayed, fine, but the way they were irrigating was to bring the water level up. And as you bring the water level up, flooding irrigation, it's got to drain out somewhere. It's got to go down so that a pump can then pump that water out and dry the land out. Well, guess where the lowest part of the land was and where the pump was? That's where all the contamination is located as well. So as the environmental professional, we were thinking, okay, how does this contamination get here? Because I know it's not going to be on the other corner of the site, where it's the highest part of the land. I'm not going to find anything over there, which it was true. We drilled some holes, put some wells in there, grabbed some water, grabbed some soil, nothing. It's all down that one section. So that's what we do as a professional, to go in there and actually look at all that. So
I have one more question. Joe, do you just have a question? Can we talk about the spraying that's going on in Naples, what they're spraying down on the, I'm kidding.
talk to mosquito control.
All right, guys, I appreciate it. Thanks, we ran a little bit over, sorry about that, but hopefully you got some good information. Thanks, sir.
Thank you.